Okay, creating data model alone is not a task. It's not the be all end all scenario. Which one the task? Which one the creating the data model? Or even after creating the data model, from the performance point of view, you need to make sure that what type of storage mode that you need to choose it. That is very much important. So we have different types of storage mode. One is the import mode and the direct query mode and composite mode and live connection mode. So import mode we already discussed, but we did not discuss in detail. So now let us dive into the import mode, each type of storage mode in detail. Okay. To start with, let us understand what is import mode. So import mode is the one widely used. We have seen it in the past sessions. If you load the flat files such as Excel files, CSV files, text file, JSON file, these are the flat files. These files by default, right? It has only one option, import mode. Okay, when you load these flat files, it doesn't ask you whether you want to use the import mode or you want to use the direct query mode, because you have only one option, import mode, for flat files. Flat files includes all the type of files like text file, CSV file, JSON file, XML file, all those things. Okay, anything which you store it in a table or database, right? That those kind of things requires direct connectivity mode. But even in the case of datawares, we store the tables are available. The probably if your customer, they use database, they would have already created the tables there and they would have already uploaded the data there. So okay. So in that case also you can, it will prompt you when you when you load the data into your Power BI desktop, whether you wanted to use a import connectivity mode or direct connectivity mode. In the case of import mode, we know very well the Power BI pull the data from your data source and load the data inside of your Power BI report itself. So in simple term, the data sits inside your Power BI desktop file. Okay. Data from the source will be loaded into Power BI. Data is stored in memory. In the case of import mode, the data gets stored in memory. And since the data gets stored in memory, your report performance is faster. It's something like if your data is available locally, and if you do the processing against that data, the performance will be obviously pretty faster. The data is not only available locally, but also it get cached in your memory. The simple analogy is, if I ask you about your parents' contact number, you tell instantly because it's got stored in your memory. Okay, but if I ask someone else, right, your neighbor's contact number or something like that, then you need to look at your mobile phone. That data is not stored locally in your memory. That is stored in your mobile phone. You need to go and check it there. Anything outside of your memory requires time to find out and get the number, isn't it? If that if you remember the number, if you store it in your memory, it will be the same thing here. The same principle is applicable here also. In memory, databases in memory is very popular. It is not quite new one. It has been there since long time. Cognos, the Cognos, it's a very conventional reporting tool that has been there for the last, 15 to 18 years or so, to my knowledge. Okay. Even in Cognos and all, right, they introduce in-memory concept. Anything in memory, the performance is pretty faster. In the case of import mode, the data is not only available locally, but also it get cached in memory. Cached in the sense, it got the data get cached. Cached, if the different people use the different term, the data get cached. Cached is nothing but the data get loaded in memory. Okay, you need to understand this one. Okay, apart from this, the other salient feature of the import mode is, we have something called X velocity engine that is running behind the scene when you use the import connectivity mode. There is something called X velocity. I'll just write it here. So previously it was called as some. Okay, one second. X velocity engine. Okay, When you use the import connectivity mode, this one will comes into picture. The XML as it's all part and parcel of your Power BI software. When you download and install your Power BI desktop, this one will also get installed. Okay, it's a piece of software. What it does is when you load anything in the import mode, including the tables, everything, the Excel Asset Engine, what it does is it compresses your data. Okay, first it compresses your data, or first it transform your table or data into columnar data, table or data to columnar database. And second, what it does is compresses the data, compresses the data. And third one is loads the compressed data in memory. These are the three tasks carried out by Xvelocity when you use the import mode. So this is the default mode for most of the source systems. Okay. For example, you have a table with or the Excel file. Let's say you have an Excel file. The Excel file size is 1 GB. When you load it into your Power BI desktop using import mode, right? So the Excel is obviously by the default import mode, the only option, the only storage mode available for the flat files, including Excel file, is import mode. So the for the Excel files is 1 GB. Let's assume that way. Okay, 1 GB is your Excel file. What it does is it will not load the entire 1 GB as it is. Okay, when you load it into Power BI, Power BI file will ends up with only 10 MB. Okay, it loads the data, but it makes sure that it compresses this data. Hence, the original file size and the Power BI data file size are not same, not identical. It is a compressed version of your original data file. Okay, the size. Since the size of the file, data file, the Power BI data file is very small compared to the original source system file size. If you load it in memory, it consumes less memory. Since it consumes less memory, the performance is also pretty faster. The next question you might be asking this one. So, what is the first step? Second step, okay, compresses the data and loads the data in memory. Fine, 1 GB file gets compressed to 10 MB or so, and then it gets, see, in this case, it got compressed to 10 MB. Done. The second step has been done. Third step is it loads this data into memory. If anything available in memory, the performance is faster. And at the same time, the size of the memory also very small. Hence, the performance will be pretty faster. So then what is the first step? Why it has to transform the table or data into columnar database? For example, I am having Excel file that is not a table or data, though it is not the RDBMS related table, but still we store the data in rows and columns, isn't it? So what it does is it transform your Excel data, which got stored as a rows and columns in the table or format, it converts that into columnar database. Each column, each cell gets stored in a separate table in memory. Okay, so that the accessing the specific columns are pretty faster. The conventional RDBMS system, if you say it, once you store the data, for example, a specific table have 100 columns in it. What happens is, for my report to create a specific report, I need only max 5 to 10 columns from out of the 100 columns. In that case, the 10 columns which I need, it is not available sequentially. It is available here and there. Okay. So in that case, to load these specific columns, 10 columns, it has to go and check the first column, whether the first column is order number or not. It is not there, it has to skip until it finds the columns that are needed for me. It keeps skipping the columns. Okay, the columns that are not relevant to me. Okay, so this skipping takes a lot of time because on no, a lot of time in the case of huge volume of the data. Obviously nowadays we are working with huge volume of the data. Hence, the performance, pretty slow. So to overcome that challenge, they came up with something called columnar database. The Apache Cassandra and in the big data space, you have something called ecosystem components such as the Apache Cassandra is one of the examples for columnar database. Cassandra, I'll just write it here. Cassandra, 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 and HBase, Mark Logic, Mark Logic, Mark Logic. These are the columnar databases. Okay, they store the data because of the humongous amount of data nowadays. The source system apps are getting generated. They store the data in this form. The classic example is in the case of Facebook, they are using HBase. It's a NoSQL database. It's a columnar database. In this case, the data gets stored here because the users, they post the data in real time, right? So, for example, you uploaded a couple of images and you posted some text or banner there, image banner, okay, and whatever you post it, within a matter of seconds, other users, those follow your ID, they can see whatever you posted it. So it's all possible in terms of catering to the needs of the real-time requirement. As and when you post it, the other user should be able to see it reasonably in a matter of seconds, right? If that takes 1 week to show it to my followers, that is not going to be helpful. So that in that kind of situation and all, right? So they are using HBase. This is one of the example for the the columnar database. Okay, the HBase is also columnar database. MarkLog is a columnar database. Cassandra is also columnar database. So what Xvelocity does is this engine, it converts your tabular data to columnar database. See, for in the case of I just write it. Let's say your column one here, order number, and your order date, and customer C name is there, and likewise your lot of columns are there. You have the quantity is there, and then you have some, and then you have the unit. Sorry, you have the list price, and you have the tax, and everything is there. All you need is, let's say you have close to 55 columns are there. All you need is just 10 columns maximum, 10 to 12 columns out of the 55 columns. In that case, it goes to check the first column whether is this the column that no, I don't need this column. All I need is the product name, and then the quantity, and then the territory name, and then the list price, and the tax and the discount. Those detail only you need it. So in that case, it goes and check each and every column. Hey, is this a product name? No, skip it. Is this a product name? No, skip it. So skipping takes more time, especially if the volume of the data is very huge. What they did in the case of columnar database, they store each and every column in a separate table itself. Hence, if you wanted to view the product name, it goes directly to the product name column. It goes directly to the quantity, list price, and also it does this subsetting. So whichever, for example, north region, you want to see only north region, I know how much units we sold and how much gross sales we made. So it filters only the appropriate data. Okay, so in that case, the performance is pretty faster in the case of columnar database. Anyhow, don't worry, we'll discuss the same when I start the DAX. Okay, so at this moment, you just remember using import mode. In the case of import mode, there is something called Xvelocity engine that comes into picture. It performs these three tasks. End of the day, your data gets compressed and then gets loaded in memory. Then what happens is this data, whatever you loaded into your Power BI desktop, that available as part of the report file itself. Okay. Since it is stored in memory, the performance is pretty faster. What are the advantages? It offers design flexibility to data modelers and supports Q&A, quick insights, etc. And leverage entire set of DAX. So DAX is an important topic. That is the one using the DAX functions, the built-in DAX functions. that are developed by Microsoft Power, right? As part of the Power BI, Microsoft, they developed various built-in functions. With those built-in functions, you can perform advanced analytics. The flip side of import mode is the imported models needs to be refreshed periodically. Otherwise, your target system will not have the up-to-date data in it. Target report files, it will not have the up-to-date data in it. For example, you have published 200 reports on cloud, Power BI cloud service. Out of the 200 reports, 20 reports, the data are related. So the 20 reports are related to daily summary data. Okay. Whenever the management they open that specific report, it should show that specific day's data in it in that report. Okay. So in that case, what happens? You have published the report from your on-premises to cloud, on-premise your local office to the cloud. You published it. The day when you publish the report, whatever the data that were available as part of your report, only that one it will show. For example, as a store manager, specific store manager, I want to view how much sales we made today. Let's I'm opening the report tonight, or late night. I'm going to open the report. When I show it, it should when I see it, it should show the today's sales performance summary of the sales today's across various category subcategory. It has to show the summary of the sales performance. Okay, and also it should show how many products we sold, how many products we have in stock, everything, so that they can plan accordingly whether they need to purchase the products well ahead. Okay, so these reports needs to be refreshed with the day-to-day data, so that these reports will be kept up to date. Okay, in that case, for example, today is what is today's date? Today is 5th. Sorry, this today's date is 5th August, right? 5th August. Let's say 1st August, I published the report on cloud. But when I open the report today on cloud, it should not show the 1st August data in it. It should show today's data in it. Only then it will be useful for me. Okay. So in that kind of situation, you need to schedule the data refresh from your local system to your report file. The day-to-day data needs to be refreshed. This is called incremental load. You need to schedule the incremental load in the case of import mode. The incremental mode has different types. Daily, there are some reports you need to load the data. You need to refresh the data on a daily basis, weekly basis, and fortnight basis, monthly basis also. Okay, on the intraday also, the same day, different point in time. Let's say every day by noon, the report should get refreshed, and every day, and also the same day by 4 p.m. the same report should get refreshed. These are the different types of incremental strategies that we'll discuss it later. At this moment, you just think the disadvantage with import mode is it requires data refresh. You need to schedule the data refresh. You need to schedule the data refresh. And other disadvantages, your Power BI model cannot be more than 1 GB per data set. This is applicable in the case of free license. Okay, what we are downloading and using is the absolutely free one. We are not paying anything. So in that case, the limitations are there when it comes to volume of the data. You cannot store more than, if your data set size is more than 1 GB per file, it will not work. Okay, but with the pro, let's say in the real world scenario, in the interview when they ask you which license your customer was using, you tell them premium license. Okay, premium license, you can store huge volume of the data. That we will discuss it, with different licensing option. What features are available, that we will discuss it later. At this moment, remember that one of the important disadvantages, you need to refresh the data once you publish the report. And importantly, when you have used import mode, if you've loaded the data using import mode in your publish report, it requires periodical data refresh. Got it? It's something like in your kitchen, right? You bought the vegetables last week. Every day you need to use the vegetables for cooking, right? Let's say, today you want. Let's say you are so health conscious. Every day you want to have the fresh food, so you go and buy the fresh vegetables, right? Every day you have to go and buy the fresh vegetables. Otherwise, you will not cook. You just think that way, okay? It's something like that. Every day you need to go and buy it on a need basis. Again, not all the reports we have to use the daily data refresh, but majority of the reports, yes, we do the daily. There are some reports, not the majority. We'll say 50% of the reports it requires daily data refresh. The reports. So, what are the limitations with respect to the Power BI desktop? The maximum report file size for a Power BI desktop is 2 GB. The maximum size for a PBIT file, there is something called Power BI template file. That one requires, that the maximum size is allowed 1 GB only. The Power BI itself, we have something, the premium license itself, we have something called P1 capacity. It can support up to, so not, this is wrong, but not the 1 GB. More than 400 GB, you can store it per data set with P1 capacity. This one we'll discuss it later, okay? But if you aware of this one, it is good. And but if you are positioning yourself as a consultant, let's say you got a job as a Power BI consultant, they'll expect you to give solutions end to end. You should be knowing, how much volume of data and when you need to schedule what data. So do you need to do you need real time data synchronization, near real time synchronization? So all these things you need to decide and you tell. But as a developer, you don't have to worry. Already you are architect, everything they set up the environment, everything. And only thing is, if you know it, it will be good. But don't limit yourself. Go extra mile. Learn more. The more you learn, you can get into the consulting mode. Obviously, your salary and everything will be good. So, okay, now we understood what is the import mode, the advantages of import mode and disadvantages of import mode. Next, we will jump into the direct storage mode. What is direct storage mode? So, the direct query mode. So, you remember when I connected to the SQL server, it was asking the two connectivity. We saw that the two different connectivity options. One is the import, the other one was the direct query mode. When we use the direct query mode, what happens is the data will not be stored in your Power BI model. It is a direct connection to a source. It is a direct connection to a source. Now the question is, okay, in the case of import also, it is directly connecting the source and then only we are loading it, right? That is correct. But in the case of import, so let's say in the Excel file, you loaded the data on 1st August. But today's, sales performance, if you want to see it, up to August 1st, whatever the data were there in my Excel file, that is the one you can see it in my Power BI report file. If I want to see my today's sales performance, obviously you need to again load the data there. Today's data you need to load it. That Excel contains only up to August 1st, but I want to see today's sales performance. That data was not there in the previous Excel file which I loaded. So you need to load. How will the Power BI know today's sales performance unless you load the data, right? So today's data you need to load it. So in the case of import mode, you need to load the today's data in another Excel file again. Okay. So daily data you can load it. That is called your daily incremental load. But it requires a scheduling. Every day you need to load. In the case of daily incremental, daily summary report, on a daily basis, you need to refresh the data, load the data, refresh the data. These two terms are same. But in the case of direct query mode, it doesn't require data refresh. You don't have to schedule that, the data refresh. Okay, data synchronization, you don't have to do it because you are in the case of direct query. What happens is only the metadata get loaded in your Power BI desktop. So what is metadata? It is nothing but data about data. These are like your business intelligence terms or data warehouse terms. Metadata. What is metadata? Data about data. Data about. See, for example, if I say 100, if I say 100, so can you get the context of this one? If I say 100, if I ask you what is this, you will say it is 100, right? You will say 100. Maybe you can use your own language, like your local language. You can say, this is in your language. You can say, right? This the different term. That end of the day, it is 100 only. What is this 100 is all about? This is a data, right? You can say, if I ask you more, hey, what is this 100? You'll say, no, I'm not expecting that answer. Tell me what exactly this one is. So either you will say 100, and the other thing is, you say it's a data. So, okay, this is a data, 100 is a data. So, what data is that? If I put something like quantity, it gives the context to this data, right? This is also the data. This data gives information about this data. Data about the data about data. So, if I give, so if I simply say 100, it is a quantity, or is a, or is it a sales amount, or is the tax amount? What the hell is this, right? But if you give something for this data, some context in the name of giving some label, we can find out what this one is all, because you need to be aware of what is metadata is very important thing. Okay, though it appears trivial, it is very much important because you are going to be a data warehouse associate. Though they say data analyst everything, you are going to be part of the data warehouse practice or BA practice once you get into a job. Okay, even in the case of startup company, they have a practice something like business intelligence practice or AA practice. Now artificial intelligence practice also came into picture, but there are some cases as part of BA itself, the IA is also following. This is different thing. And here, in the case of business intelligence, you should be knowing these terms also. Okay, so direct query. In this case, what happened when when you create a chart? For example, I'm going to create a columnar chart. In this case, in the x-axis, this is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. The y-axis I plotted revenue, and the x-axis I plotted the region. Right. So these two, let's assume that these two columns are available in a same table. The same table, these two columns are available. You just think that way, okay? So in that case, what happens is when you drag and drop these columns, in the case of direct query mode, what happens is, this what happens is it queries the source system SQL server or any RDBMS. Don't think only SQL server. It can be Oracle, or it can be DB2, or it can be some other RDBMS, or let's say MySQL, okay, and so on. Okay, MySQL, let's ignore that this moment. DB2, Oracle, SQL Server, and so on. Okay, in this case, what happens is when you drag, all you do is just drag and drop the columns in the axis. But in this case, what on the Power BI will query your source system SQL Server table. For example, the table name is sales table. In the sales table, these two columns are available. So, as and when you drag and drop, it goes and queries your source system data. Okay, because the data is not loaded locally into your Power BI desktop. In the case of direct query mode, this is your Power BI. This is your SQL server. Okay, the data is not loaded locally here. Okay, the data is not loaded locally. Every time it has to query. For example, you have a slicer. In the slicer, you have something called north, east, west region. Let's say you want to see only the north region. When you apply a filter by selecting this value alone, it will show only the north region sales performance. North and south region, it will show north and south region sales performance. As and when the user make changes to the slicer, for example, you want to be north and south region sales performance alone, you selected north and south. In that case, a new query will be generated, and then the query will be sent to your SQL server, and then that query will get executed against this table. The output of this query will be sent back to your visual. That is what is happening in the case of direct query mode. But in order to generate the SQL by the Power BI, it needs to know the table name and column name, right? So in this case, you have the say the in that case, what are the only the skeleton will get loaded, the sales order number and so on, the product ID, and then the quantity and list price and the sales amount. Okay, these column names and table only will get loaded here. That is the reason why I told this in metadata. Only the metadata will get loaded in the case of direct query mode. And with that metadata, what we can do is we can drag and drop the columns to the respective axis. When we drag and drop the columns into a visual, it generates a SQL query behind this, in which one the Power Query Editor or Power BI desktop. And this SQL query will be sent to you. For example, for this visual, you need only two columns. Select region, comma, revenue from sales table. That query will be sent here, and then the query will get executed here. The output of the query will be sent back to your visual. In the case of import, it doesn't have any. Do you think Excel has any server? Nothing, right? The data from the Excel, it got loaded directly into a report. It need not to go and query other source system and all, right? Since the data is available locally, it load the data here. Okay, now the question is, yeah, Leela is asking if the Excel is available in cloud. So what can I do? So in the case of cloud, Power BI, the cloud service is there. In the cloud service, you can access that cloud file, and then you can load the data there. Okay, even in that case also it is import only. See, for example, in the Power BI cloud service, I'll show you that one later. Okay, I'll come back to that later. Okay, I remember that. I'll come back to you. The cloud service also, if you have the data is already available in a cloud, there also you can use import mode only. There is the point here is for the flat files, whether it's a cloud or local, it is a import mode only. Remember that. In the case of Oracle, any RDBMS or SAP system, the HANA, SAP HANA, that kind of source system, the direct query mode, you can use it. I'll show you the list of source system which uses the direct query mode. Okay, okay, it is a direct connection to the source, and then data will not be stored in your Power BI model. Yes, the data of the sales table will not get loaded here locally, unlike your import mode. In the case of direct query mode, only the metadata, the table skeleton only will be there here. Okay, so that's what Power BI will only store metadata of tables. So what are the, as part of metadata, what information it stores? Table name, sales, column names, all the columns of your SQL Server table, and the relationship that we'll discuss it later. Okay, that's all. Okay, just a skeleton only it gets stored here. So what you do is just drag and drop this, and then it generates the SQL query. That query will be sent to a source system, and the output of the data will get populated in visual automatically. Okay, every time when the user makes changes to the slicer, in that case, what happens? Every time it queries the data from your source system. Hence, there is no need of refreshing the report by scheduling it every day by night or 11 p.m. Load the data into this report. You don't have to do it. As and when the data gets loaded, if you want to access the data in the almost like a real time basis, right? So you can access the data directly, and then it returns the data here. For example, you want to view the north region alone or northeast region, north and east, you selected it. In the case, the new query will get generated. Northeast, north region, east region, whatever the sales performance, that one will be sent back here. As and when you apply the different filter, each time it will query the source system database. In the case of import, the data got loaded here. When you make changes to the slicer, in that case, it goes and queries the data that loaded in your in-memory. But the in-memory data is not up to date. In order to keep your in-memory data up to date, you need to refresh the data from your source system to this Excel file. Here, there is no need of scheduling the data refresh. So what is the advantage of less storage? Because you are not loading the Source system sales table data into your Power BI desktop locally. You are loading only the table name column. That's all. Why you are loading only the table name and column? Why do you need to use direct query? Because the volume of the data is too high in the case of fact table. Let's say my customer is into e-commerce business. He is storing 5 years data in it. Almost 1 petabyte two to 3 petabyte volume of data are there in the fact table itself. Okay, and the product itself, if you see 1 billion, close to 1 billion products they listed on their website. The volume of data is huge. In that case, it is not recommended to use the import mode to load the data locally here. So there is a question from Kamal. In direct query mode, only report published to Power BI service and not the dataset, as data is not loaded into. Very good. So there will be no data in Power BI service for all the reports using direct query mode. Is my understanding. So there will no data in Power BI. Okay. So in direct query mode, only report is published to and not the dataset, as data is not. No. It will publish the report file along with the metadata also, right? It will publish the metadata also. And yes, that's a very good question. There will be no data in the Power BI service workspace. Yeah. So what he's asking is, when I publish the report from my Power BI desktop to cloud, in the report, let's say I use the data set, in the data set, that are all loaded with import mode. In that case, along with the report, the data set will also get published. But in the case of direct query mode, what happens is it has to publish the data should have the metadata, right? It will publish that one also. Okay. So these are the advantages. It doesn't require, because you are not loading the data locally. Hence, it doesn't require storage space, much storage space. It requires less only. And models don't require scheduled data refresh. Here you don't have to do the data refresh and all, because you are querying the data directly, right? And advantages, limitations to the disadvantage, limitation to DAX query. You cannot use all DAX functions, and you have limited Power Query operations. Even in the Power Query editor, you cannot perform any complex data transformation. Even the moderate data transformation, you cannot do it. Then you might be asking this one. Nowadays, we are dealing with huge amount of data. Then if the direct query is the only option we are left with to use it. But even in this case, if I cannot perform even the moderate, yes, that is the limitation. Okay, even the moderate transformations you cannot do it. For example, if you want to merge the columns, two columns, if you want to merge it or split it, that is not working. Maybe, right, if you want to rename a column, small changes, right, you do it to your the so small transformation you do it, it will work. Even if you do moderate data transformation, that is not working. And the DAX queries, you cannot use all DAX functions. You can use only the specific data, the DAX functions. And then the direct query is possible for few data sources. This is another limitations. Direct query is not working with MySQL server database. Microsoft SQL Server it works. MySQL it is not working. Which one? The direct query mode. So these are the source system supported by direct query in Power BI. So Amazon Redshift, Azure HD Insight, Azure SQL Database, the SAP and Spark, SQL Server, Teradata. And if you want to see the entire source system supported in direct query mode, you can go and view it in the Microsoft website. Okay. And also we discussed about the query folding. What is query folding? What is query folding? Query folding is an important concept. The same thing, whatever I discussed. This is your Power BI desktop. You have created a visual, and you have created a direct connectivity mode, direct query mode. Let's say you have the sales table. It contains let's say 50 billion records in it, billion records. Okay. Since the volume of the data is very huge, you cannot import it. It takes a lot of time and requires a lot of storage here also. Hence, what you do is You let the data be there wherever it is. I will go and query it. It's something like work from home, right? You don't have to come to office. Okay, you just do, you work from your home, and you update the status. That's all. It's something like that. Okay. So here, in this case, a region column is there in my x-axis, and the y-axis revenue is there. So in that case, what happens is, I wanted to know in each region what is the total sales that we, the total revenue we generated. So in this case, what happens, since we have used the direct query mode for this sales table, because these two columns consist of these two columns are part of your sales table. Just let's assume that way. Okay. What happens is, it generates the query something like that. We select the region, comma, sum of the sales from what is my table name, sales table. And then it does the group by. We have something called group by region. I don't need the transaction. Let's in the last month in the north region, we if you see the number of transactions, it were close to 100 million transactions. Okay, or not 100 million. Let's 10 million invoices we generated. Let's assume that last month. Okay, in the case of big box retailers, yes, they could see huge volume of transactions. 10 million transactions happen in the north region alone. Right, let's you do the business across four regions for the sake of simplicity. Okay, in this case, 1, 2, 3 for north, east, west, south. What happens is just generate a query. Instead of downloading a 50 billion record, it generates the query smartly. It sends the query to your source system. This query will get executed against this table. As I said, hypothetically, in the north region, you have close to 10 million records are there. In south region, you have 8 million records are there. In east region, let's say you have 12 million records are there, right? So in this case, you just think that way, okay? Or 18 million or 22 million, here, 20 million or something like that. 20 million transactions are there. Okay. So in this case, what happens? This query will get executed against this one. And finally, it will not display, it will not, this query will not retrieve each and every record. The 20 million records will not be sent back here. It applies the sum on, for the north region sales column and the sales column for these regions. Okay, it applies the sum. So end of the day, only the four regions, north, south, east, west. The north region, we made, let's say, 100, so let's, 102K sales in terms of revenue. Okay, here 208K and east region, let's say 198K, and west region you can say 65K, 65,000, $95,000 US dollar. Only the four records out of these many million records, this query will get executed against this table. It applies the aggregation function sum on the sales column, and then it gives me the sales breakdown by region, total sales breakdown by region, and then the output of the query will be, this is my query's output. Okay, after it get executed, the query's output, the query outputs only four records. These four records will be passed to a source system. So here you just think about it. If you use the import mode, what will happen? 50 billion record needs to get loaded locally here. It takes lot of time. It requires lot of resources, memory, CPU, IO, lot of things, and the network bandwidth. It requires huge network bandwidth. It takes a lot of time, and then on top, the reporting users do not have patience to wait, to see a report, to see this one, right? They cannot afford to wait for 1 week. The best approach is generate the query, and this query may not be more than 1K, right? The size of the K, very 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 tiny size. This query you send it here, execute it here, and then get the output back, and then you send it here. That's all. Right? Even the query output is it outputs only four records. Sending the query requires less size, and outputting or passing the result of your query doesn't require too much of network, just 4 records. And even this one may be 1 KB only. Sending 1 KB and getting 1 KB data out of the 50 billion record, the direct query plays an important role. So this is really crucial if you use the direct query in the case of huge volume of data. However, there are limitations. You need to go through on it. If you are a consultant, make sure that before you propose the customer, check what are the limitations, and then you can go ahead and propose the customer. So now you understood what is direct query mode. Direct query mode, we don't load the data locally into a Power BI desktop. Instead, the Power BI will query the source system, SQL Server, Oracle, query the data from a source system itself. Okay, and it loads only the metadata into your Power BI desktop. And the advantage of this one is it doesn't require data refresh because you are querying the data directly. The other advantage is it doesn't require storage space. It doesn't require any storage space. It requires tiny storage space. And the disadvantages we discussed already, right? So you cannot use all DAX functions. You cannot use all data transformation. If you want to perform any complex data transformation, either you have to use the ETL tool, SSIS, or Power Informatica, or Azure. Now Azure, Azure Data Factory gained a lot of a lot of momentum. You have to use that one, okay, to perform very complex thing. But there are customers, they cannot afford to buy more, additional ETL tool, more number of tools. They cannot buy it. They say, hey, better you can develop a stored procedure in the SQL server itself, implement all the complex logic. That is enough for us. This is another alternative. Okay, so the lot of limitations when it comes to data transformation in the case of direct query mode. Next one is the live connection mode. The live connection mode is also somewhat similar to your direct query mode. It is a direct connection to the source. Okay, but in this case, even in this case, the data will not be stored in your Power BI model, your local desktop, Power BI desktop. Okay, the live, but the limitation is it can work only with the three data sources. One is SSAS tabular, SSAS multidimensional, and Power BI service. It works only with these three tools. Which one? These tools and Power BI service. Which one? The live mode. Like direct query mode, the advantage here is you don't have to do the data refresh, and there is no size limitation. Okay, and you can perform all kind of the data transformation, DAX transformation. Sorry, the DAX transformation. Okay, Power Query edit. Yeah, you cannot perform the Power Query. You cannot use Power Query at all in the previous version, but the recent version they are allowing us to use the Power Query editor. But if we use the Power Query editor in live mode, it gets switched from live mode to import mode automatically. Hence, you cannot you cannot do the data transformation in live mode, and you cannot combine data from multiple sources. Once you establish a connection with your SSAS table or Power BI service to work on the live mode, you can work only with the data sets that are available in your live mode. You cannot mix any other data along with the live mode data. These are the limitations with live mode. Now the question is, the interview question is, which one is faster? Whether the direct query mode is faster, live mode is faster. The live mode is faster, pretty faster compared to direct query mode. The other question is, does import is faster or direct query mode faster? On a case-to-case basis only, we can answer this question. There is no, there is no one size fits all options here. So in the case of moderate volume of the data, you can go for import. If the volume of the data is too high, for example, in our case, we had close to 3.5 petabyte volume of data were there in our source system database, data warehouse, fact table. So in that kind of situation, obviously, the import mode will not work. We have used the direct query mode. Okay, but the direct query mode, the disadvantage, we cannot do all kind of data transformation. But there are some reports it requires, very complex data transformation. Okay, obviously you need to use some stored procedure if you don't have any ETL tool. But the on a case together, like I said, huge volume data you can go for direct query mode, moderate volume data you can go for this one. Live mode you can work only with these three sources. For example, in the case of Power BI service, let's say I have developed a report and published on cloud. In my report, I have a mix of various files. Like my Excel file is there, XML file is there, JSON file is there, and Oracle SQL Server. All the types of all the different types of source system files I loaded in my Power BI desktop, and in both import as well as the direct query mode. And then I published the report. I did data modeling, everything, data cleaning, everything, and then I published on cloud. Hmm. If somebody is doing the data cleaning, data pre-processing, and then the data modeling, what other job you are going to do, right? Your task is very simple. Your task is as a report developer. You all you need to do just import that live mode data set into your Power BI desktop, and then it's kind of a plain vanilla. Okay, you need to focus on developing the reports. You need to do the report design. That's it. Okay, so what are the advantages of this one? With this is you are able to understand, right? With the live mode, you have a better control on your data model and data, right? So no one can modify the data, no one can modify the relationship, no one can change the relationship between the tables. You have better control, right? Single point of control. Okay, so in that case, the report developer has to focus only on their report creation part. That's it. They don't have to have the headache of which source system, what file is there, and what is the connection details, what is the database name. You don't have to. Everything is pre-packaged in the case of live mode. Okay, there is something called Power BI data sets. Okay, Power BI data sets, data source files, right? This is a kind of a proprietary file format of your Power BI. And the advantage of this one is this make data source much easier to share with others. Now what I will do is I'll give you a quick demo in the live mode. So with Power BI datasets, I will give you the demo on that. Okay. So look here, I'm going to start Power BI desktop. It's already started good. And I just close that one. And I'm going to click on get data. Here you can see the Power BI datasets. Can you all see it? The Power BI datasets. Okay. I just click on it. It will ask me the username and password and the cloud details to connect to my cloud. Since already I mentioned my cloud URL and then the username and password, it connects directly there. Okay, it stores something like a cookie. Okay, see, this is my Power BI cloud service. I'll just show you. I go to the browser. So here I just say app.powerbi.com. This is your Power BI cloud service, app.powerbi.com. So what happened in this case, it connected to my public. I just show you one more time. All we need to do is click on the get data, icon here, and then you see a lot of connectors. The second one, Power BI data. When you click on it, what will happen is first time when you do it, it will ask you the username and password for your Power BI cloud service. And again, don't rush and break your head. Hey, I'm not able to create the username password, I need official. Don't worry about, simply watch my video, that is enough at this moment. Okay, but you need to have the username and password for that on cloud, our Power BI cloud service. For that you need to have the official email id. At this moment, let's not worry about that. Okay, let's focus on the strategic area. Okay, so here, when I click on it, it'll ask me the username and password of my cloud service. That's all. It's not a rocket science. Look here, all you need to have the username and password. Once you connect it, that's all, you will find something like this, Power BI cloud service. Here, I'll just show you, right? So now I came back to my Power BI desktop. I just read the Power BI data sets. Now it got connected to my Power BI cloud service. What are the data that are there, right? It shows me, and along with the folder name. This is called the workspaces. In Power BI cloud service, you have something called workspaces. Can you all see it here? These are the workspaces. Okay, if you click on it, you can see all the folders, workspaces that I created. This is kind of your Windows folder. You can click on new workspace. It will ask you the workspace name. For example, I gave the workspace name as big box. For example, look here, click on new workspace. Here you go and give some name here. Okay, and if you give some name and then if you apply it, it will create a workspace with that name. So in my case, already I created the workspace name as the customer profit, sorry, workspace name. One second, workspace name is this one, Dev Sandbox Retail. I just click on it. That is my folder on the Power BI Cloud Service. You just think that way. In that folder, so these are the data sets and the reports that I published already. But you don't have to publish the data set explicitly. It does the publication automatically. Look here, in this case, I just go to the, yeah, look here, these are the data sets that are available already. Okay. And since you have asked that question, connect to SQL Server from Power BI. Look here, this is also a data set. Okay, I'm going to click on this. Since Kamalji asked this question, I'll just show you. So this is a report file. Already I published it. Which one? They connect into SQL Server. That's the report file. I don't have that report file now in my hand. And one second, I will show you there. Now I connected to the Power BI Cloud Service with my username and password. The moment when I gave user and password, it listed all the data sets that were published on cloud, right? Look here, I'll just show you here. Once again. Oh, okay. Once you load it again, you cannot use it. But again, when you try it, right, it is not accepting, more than one data sets. See, along with this, you cannot put anything else. Okay. Okay. Let us look at this. And I just go to the data model view. You can see all the tables. See, in this case, I've used the direct query mode for, sorry, see, on top of the tables, you can see the blue color. And if you hover the color, this is not your direct query mode, right? So it is a live connection mode. The server is api.powerbi.com version 1.0 MyOrg SQL Server connection, right? Connect to SQL Server from Power BI. The databases, the SQL Server used it. And in this case, SQL Server, connect to SQL Server from Power BI. Connect to SQL Server from Power BI. Okay, but in the SQL Server itself, look here. In this case, okay, what I will do is I'll just go here. I'll open another blank report file. So when you work with the Power BI data sets, the live data mode, right? You have to use a fresh file. If you have loaded previously with some other data, and with that report file, if I try to connect to the Power BI cloud service with the Power BI data sets, right? For the Power BI data sets, it will not work. It works exclusively with Power BI dataset. It's something like, I can work only with my known people. I cannot work with other people. Okay, our team people will not mingle with other people. It's something like that. They lie more. Okay, I'll just show you here. Look here. This is the reason, right? When I clicked on it, it connected to my Power BI cloud service because I already mentioned the username and password. Every time you cannot change it. Yeah, it is taking time. Look here, it shows all the reports and data sets that I published. Here I have used this one, right? Data set name is that I use the SQL server. Okay, let me just go here. Data source settings, you can, yeah, when you click on the data source settings itself, it will take here, okay? But in this case, I have used the SQL Server connection, right? SQL Server connection. I forgot to note down the workspace name. Connect to SQL Server, yeah, SQL Server connection. Yes, in this case, the location is SQL Server connection. Dev, Sandbox, Retail, all the things. But here it shows, directly the SQL Server. Dev, Sandbox, Jan. Okay, connect to SQL Server. Dev, Sandbox, Jan. I will just go to the cloud service. Dev, Sandbox, Jan. Where is that? My cloud. There's no. Okay, I'll just connect it one more time. What happened? I created a report and then I publish on cloud. How did I publish it on cloud? Look here, you have an option here to publish the Dev Sandbox. Okay, I just say okay. Yeah, you will, if you go to the your report canvas, you'll find something called publish. No, it's not such thing. Say publish. For example, I created a chart here, column chart. Once I create the report, click on publish. It will ask your connection details to the Power BI username, password, and which folder in your cloud you want to publish it. Once you click on the publish, the report file along the dataset will also get published on cloud. Okay. So in this case, in our example, I have used this one, workspaces, Dev Sandbox Jan. Look here, this is the one. If I go to this folder or workspace, okay, but use the term workspace when you talk to your customers or your stakeholders. So this is the report file, right? This is the report file. I created this report and then, no, this is artificial intelligence. One second, let me just go back here. Okay, I just click on the workspace again. Dev Sandbox Jan. Where is that Dev Sandbox Jan? Hmm. In this one, yes, I think so. Yeah, I connected to this one, decomposition, tree, anomaly detection, everything. And I just click on it here. And then probably I will go to the here, okay, the Dev Sandbox Jan. If you can see here, okay, sorry, this is the one, right? The connect to SQL, not that one. Connect to SQL Server. This is the report I created. Look here, I click on it here. This is the one I created in my Power BI desktop. I don't know why it takes this much of time. It's too slow. See, what is the report name? Connect to SQL Server from Power BI. Please concentrate here. Okay, that is the one I created it. And once I created it, I clicked on publish, and it was asking me the workspace name on the cloud where it should get published. I mentioned about the connect the this one, the folder. Sorry, the workspace name on cloud is Dev Sandbox Jan. This is the one single report file. In there are two pages are there in this report. When I clicked on it, what happened? When I clicked on this report file, what happened? It was asking me the username and password to connect to the Power BI Cloud Service. And also it was asking in which folder you want to publish this. Folder in the sense nothing but workspace on cloud. Which folder you want to publish it. Okay, I published it here. So all I did was I just clicked on the publish icon. This report connect to SQL Server PBI. This is a report file name. It got published here. Look here, the type is report. When I publish on the 23rd Feb, I just publish it. Okay. Along with that, this data file also got published automatically. Got it? So this is my data set. So in this case, I've used the directory mode and import connectivity connectivity mode. So for that, what we have to do is we need to go to the you wanted to verify whether it has whether we use the directory mode or import mode for the SQL Server. I do one thing. I just go here, connect to SQL Server from PBAX to validate in this report file whether I have used the direct query mode or import mode. I just open this file. Okay, I just clicked on it. Let's wait for some time. It will take some time to load it. Ideally, I should have opened that file and I should have shown you, okay, from the beginning, end to end, any of. But see, sometimes in real world scenario, not sometimes, many times, the customer will not give you everything. Okay, certain things you need to understand, even if they don't give the complete picture, end to end picture. Connect to SQL Server. Try to be used to that. You just think me as your customer. Don't think me as a trainer. Trainer or they are having soft corner to their students. One second, sorry. Let it open. So, uh, so the Power BI account, yeah, let it open it. In the meanwhile, we'll discuss about the Power BI data sets. Okay. So already I have opened another report. This one or this one. One second, let me just check. Yeah, in this one we have already data in it. Where in the Power BI desktop. Hmm. So there are three report files. Connect to SQL Server from Power BI. Look here. This is the one got loaded here. Yeah. No. This is the original file. Original file. Okay. Let's start everything from the beginning. Okay. So I have a report file. So in this report file, I connected to SQL Server database, and then I loaded the tables. I just it takes a lot of time. Even with the less number of data, look your model view when you go here. Yes, the customer dimension table and all these three tables we have we got it from our SQL server. These two tables are direct import mode. This one is direct query mode. You just let's say this is our starting point. Okay, we load and then what I did, three tables we loaded and we create the report. Okay, I click on the publish. It'll ask me where it should get published. First, it'll ask me whether you want to save it. Yes, save it, and then publish. It's always a best practice to save. For example, in the big box, if I click on it, in the cloud, we have a folder called big box created already. In that, this report gets published. In this report, we have two import files. Two files we have used the import query mode. One is the direct query mode. So even then, it published the data set. If you ask me, okay, here you have a mix of import and the direct query mode. So that you can test it out. Okay, look here, and if I go back here, the workspaces. Now where I published, all of you please type in a big box folder, right? The big box folder, and if you click on refreshed connect to Power BI. Look here, what is today's date? 8/5, August 5th, 23. Just now I published this report again. So, sorry, this report, right? So, for your sake of understanding, this report file I published to cloud in which workspace? The big box workspace. Okay, it's nothing but a workspace, nothing but a folder on cloud. Okay, so along with the report file, the data file also get published. Cool, we are done. And the Next, we will move on with the Power BI data set. Let's go back to our previous discussion. I'll just expand it. No, not this one. I will just close it. This one is not required. And where what happened to that one? This is data. Okay, it is not there. Oh my God, okay. Let's open a fresh file. Now we will do the we will import the Power BI datasets from the scratch. See, first you create a report. In this report, you create the data model, loaded all the tables, all the files also in the real world scenario. You create the data model, design everything, and then you have did the data cleaning everything using Power Query Editor, and then you published on cloud. Where you published it, all of you please type it to the chat window. Big Box Workspace. In cloud, I have a folder by the name of Big Box. You're not supposed to call it a folder. It is called as a workspace. In the Big Box folder, I published this report. When I published this, along with this, the data set also got published on cloud. Now I open the new report file. Let's say I'm your team leader, BA architect. I did everything: data cleaning, loading all the files, necessary files or tables from various source systems. I did the data cleaning, data model design, everything I did, published it. Now I tell you, you're all developer, you just think that, okay? So all you need to do is you need to click on the get data and Power BI assets, and I gave you the workspace name, and the workspace, what is the word? Big Box, right? So I tell you, hey guys, this is where in this workspace you will find the data set. You need to import that file, the data set. That is called your Power BI data set. Click on it. It will get loaded here. Once it's get loaded, you will not be able to see the data view. You will not see the icon data view itself. You cannot see the data because of security reasons. You can view only the data model. That is for you to understand the relationship between the tables, but you cannot drop or modify the relationship between the tables. But one more thing, if you notice it here, so in this report file that I created it, your architect, team architect, only these two tables are import. This one is the direct query mode. But when I asked you to, and then I published on cloud, right? And then when I asked you to load it here using Power BI datasets, you loaded it here. Okay, you loaded it here. You establish a live connection. In the case of live connection, all the tables on top of it, you can see the blue color line. So how do I know which one is the live mode, all the things, right? You just, where is a live or direct query mode, you can just keep the cursor on top of this, you can see that. But you cannot see whether the sales fact is a direct query mode or something like that. Okay, underlying thing you cannot say. Even if you go to the data source settings, it will take you back to this one only. You cannot see the underlying exact data source. Okay, when you don't need it, let's I already published the report, everything. You just imported the data set which I published on cloud. All you need to do is just view the data model design, and then you see whether the connections are there or not. Let's say you find this table where was not linked to this table, you can get back to me. I'm the senior architect. I will be I'll go and make the necessary changes, and then I will publish it again. And then I'll say, hey, I published everything. You need to download the data again using the datasets mode. So once you load it, you can see the three tables. Your job is only here. You create the reports, that's all. You don't have to do the data model design. You don't have to do the data cleaning, everything. Okay. And if you click on the data model, you can see it here. For example, if you want to do, if I hover the cursor here, we can see the common columns between the tables, location key got highlighted. I can understand the relation. That's all. Okay. But look here, when I right click on it, it's not working. And when I try to modify it, it is not removing the column, removing this thing. Nothing is possible. As a report developer, simply import the Power BI dataset, start focus only on the report design part. Hope you understood what is Power BI datasets. It's a proprietary format, the dataset format, which is the Power BI dataset. Once you create a report as an architect, once you create the data model, design, data cleaning, everything, and then once you publish it on cloud, that published file can be reused by your team members, the report designers. All they need to do is just view the data model design, and then they can go and create they can do the report design. That's it, guys. The advantage of this one is the Power BI data set is there is a centralized control. Only the data architect as a control in terms of modifying the relationship between the tables, and deleting the relationship or changing the column name. Only you can do it. You cannot do anything. You can do only one thing. You can do the report design. There is a single point of control. That is one of the advantages of this one. And then in this case you did not download the data locally like direct query mode. Every time when you apply any filter using a slicer to your visuals, it will query the data directly from your cloud data set, like direct query mode. Hence it requires less storage. And also you can do the DAX query. You can use more number of DAX queries in live mode compared to your direct query mode. Here also limitations are there. You cannot use all the DAX functions like in import mode. But compared to direct query mode, here you can use a majority of the DAX queries, DAX functions. These are the advantages. Okay. I just go back to my slide, and okay. The next one is the yeah, and you don't have to. Everything is pre-packaged. That is another advantage of Power BI data source files. You don't have to be aware of what tables and what the database name, say SQL Server name, what the password. You don't have to have the data. Everything is pre-packaged, pre-wired. Already someone me, okay, as a architect, data architect, I created everything. I loaded the data from various source systems. I know the path, everything I did it, and then I publish a report on cloud. Your as a report, your job is just download only the data set, the Power BI data source file from the cloud. That's all. You need to focus on only this, and you don't have to have the headache of knowing the credentials, everything. Okay. So now you understood how to work with the live mode. For that, I have given you the demo with Power BI datasets. And so the disadvantage of this one is you cannot do the data transformation. You cannot combine data from multiple sources. Look here, in this case, it's a live mode. In this case, if I go to the get data, so in the previous version, all the icons got deactivated. You cannot, but only in the newer version they enabled it. For example, if I want to load the Excel file along with this, the live mode, it is possible now, but you'll need to switch to direct query connection, add a local model. The purpose is defeated, right? If you our purpose is I want to use the live data, so I want to establish a live connection. But if I want to add another thing here, it has to switch to your connection has to switch to the local model. Hence, with this itself, it is pretty clear that you cannot combine data from other sources. Once you connect with your Power BI live data, so sorry, in a Power BI cloud data set, that's it. You cannot mix other things here. Okay, these are the limitations. But live query is pretty faster. For example, in the case of table or multi-dimensional, the data are already cached in memory. In the case of SSAS, even though you query the data from the remote server or remote system, since the data got cached in memory in the remote system, the performance is faster. Whereas in the case of direct query mode, what happens is not necessarily all the tables to be cached in memory. For example, the fact table, they don't cache it in memory because it requires too much of memory. It has to go, if the data got cached in memory, then the performance will be faster. Okay. Not all the time it will be cached in memory. Okay. But in SQL server, you know very well, when you fire any query against your source system table, it goes and checks whether the table data available in memory. If that is not available in the SQL Server memory, it goes and reads the data from the hard disk and then it will load it into memory. Okay, the reading and loading. The reading is the one and is an expensive process from the performance point of view. You should be knowing that what is IO, reading the data from disk, is something like you are reading the phone number of your neighbor from your mobile phone. It takes longer time, right? If it is already there in your memory, you can tell fat fat. The same thing, the same principle is applicable here. In the case of SSAS tabular and multidimensional is a cube. Okay, what is a cube? Cube is multidimensional, right? So in this kind of situation, whatever the data is already cached, the cube is cached in memory. Hence, the performance pretty faster. I don't talk much about the cube and all. You will be overwhelmed. Okay. So with this, I'm going to stop. So to summarize, in today's session, we discussed about the different types of storage mode, the import mode, and the direct query mode, and composite mode and live mode. The composite mode, we will discuss it in tomorrow's session. And as part of import mode, what are the advantage disadvantages we discussed, and the direct and live mode also we discussed the advantage disadvantages. And what I will do is I will upload the today's session video. You just look at it. This is very important topic. In most of the interview they ask questions from this topic also. Okay, watch the video. And yeah, that report file, yes, Leela. So this is the one I will share it to you all. Connect to SQL Server. This is the one I will share it to you all. And make sure that in your SQL Server, I believe all of you have installed SQL Server, MS also. Make sure that you create all the tables. You can watch my previous session video how to connect to SQL Server video, and then you can create those tables, and then load it here. You can change the connection here. That's all. The database name, everything you keep it similar to mine. Okay, so that you don't have to come and make changes here. That's all. And then you can create as one simple report and publish to the cloud. If you are so curious to know about how to work with Power BI Cloud Service, there is a dedicated session. We'll discuss it later pointer. At this moment, I would suggest you to understand what each type of storage mode and what the advantage disadvantage. That is more than sufficient. Okay. And tomorrow we'll discuss about the composite mode. That is very interesting one, and that we will discuss it tomorrow. So when I explain that, you'll be able to understand it is not only important to do the data model design. As part of the data model design, we should also determine what type of storage mode to be used for what tables. That also matters in when it comes to the performance report. You did the data model design, everything is good. End of the day, your report, in the sense the visuals, the column chart or tree map are not getting populated the data in a pretty fast manner, it is waste, right? Hence, when you so as part of data model design, also make sure that you are using the right strategy when it comes to choosing the storage mode, the appropriate storage mode. Okay, fine. I'm done with it in today's session. So, you have any questions? Okay. This is a previous question. Okay, there will be no data center power visuals for all the reports using direct query mode. So yes, see the Kamaljit question is very interesting question. The previously I answered it. So in this case, what you do is give it a try. Okay. In this case, you load all these tables in direct query mode. All the tables in direct query mode, and then you publish. Click on the publish. Create one simple chart. Click on publish. How do you know I created this one? How to create this one? You just click on my visual, and then it got highlighted here, right? Look here, it got highlighted, this icon. Can you see the squared one? So with that, you can understand this is the clustered column chart. If you hover the cursor here, you can see the type of the chart name here, okay? And then here, when you click on it, this one gets added. With that, you can understand what type of chart. It's a clustered column chart. And also, if you look at on the I know here, somewhere here, the x-axis and y-axis, what columns that I used. In the x-axis, I have used the location name, and then the y-axis which is sum of sales. So for the time being, what you do is you just drag and drop directly the location name and the sales amount into this visual. Okay, and then make sure that you have used all the tables in directory mode, and then give it a try, and then you publish it. And when you publish it to the cloud by clicking on this icon, yeah, you need to obviously have the username and password, and then you see if this report file get published along with the dataset automatically or not. Obviously it has to publish the dataset because the dataset only contains, look here, the simple example, simple common sense. Look here, the sales fact table I use directory mode, right? In you know, look here, if I go back to my Power BI datasets which I used it in this report file, where is the report file? Did I close it? Yeah, I did not close it. Good. If you expand this one, see, it shows the column name, right? It shows the column name here. And transform data, one way it is good, it is, I will look here again, when you click on the transform data in the Power BI data sets, the previous version, it got disabled. The recent version, only they enable this one. But if you want to make changes to this data, you can still go ahead and do it as a report designer, but you need to switch it to the local mode. That is not preferred one. Okay, but from where it is coming? It is coming from your data set only, right? In Power BI, how I created a SQL Server connection. That we will see it later. So as I told you, we will use the Azure SQL. For that, I need to install. But if you want, yeah, so in that case, you need to specify the SQL. See, in this case, in Power BI service, how I create SQL Server connection. All you need to is install the Azure SQL Server in Azure. That's it. Create the tables, and then you come back to the get data. Click on the SQL Server, and here you need to give your SQL Server Azure URL. So once you create the Azure Cloud, Azure SQL on cloud, right? Once you install it there, you need to give that URL. That's all. But end of the day, you are going to work in your Power BI desktop only, because you need to do the data model design everything here. Okay, yeah, you need to do the data model design here only, right? And then you publish it to the cloud. So in that case, your cloud, your published report will be there. The database is also available in your cloud itself. The same logic. Okay, don't think it is different. Okay, see here, when I click on SQL Server, you remember it was asking the server name and database name. The server name you need to give on. See, in the previous batch, in one batch only, I gave the demo. It involves some cost in the cloud. Okay, that is the reason why I will show it that one also. Don't worry. Okay, not much different. The same principle, the same step. You need to follow it. Even in the case of the SQL Server database available on cloud, same. So only thing is you need to use the Azure SQL Server name in your Power BI desktop to connect to the database. That's all. I think you are asking that how in Power BI sir, how I created my SQL Server connection. Okay. Okay. So in that case, look here. So here, if I go to the Power BI Cloud Service, so you can, if you wanted to do it directly there, right? Okay, you have some option there. Look here. For example, I'm going to use the workspaces. In this case, yeah, new, and here, let's say I'm going to create a data flow here. Data flow we'll see it later. Don't worry. Look here. Here, link define new tables. Link tables from other data flows and define new tables. Add new tables. When you click on the add new tables, it will give you various options here. Cloud to cloud, right? That's what you're asking. Okay, here look here SQL Server database. This option is there. If you click on it here, Here you need to give your Azure SQL Server URL. That's all, and then the database name. Cloud to cloud, if you want to connect, you can use it. That's all. It's pretty simple. Okay. Or if you wanted to connect it from your Power BI desktop, because in Power BI desktop only you can do the data model design. You cannot do it the data model design in cloud. Okay, as of today. Okay, maybe in future they may introduce that feature. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm done with this. You have any? This one I will demonstrate later. Okay, don't worry. But because it requires the licensing thing, I will do it later. Don't worry. Okay. The principle is same. Okay, since you don't have any questions, I'm going to